Dungeon defenders inside Genshin Impact? That's right, you can now play a tower defense game inside Genshin Impact for the next 20-ish days anyway. This is part of the Lantern Rite festival, which frankly is probably the best event Genshin Impact has had so far. Chinese New Year, Chinese company, you knew they were going to go all out. There are plenty of videos online right now talking all about the Lantern Rite and all the different quests you got to do. You got to do Zhao's storyline, a whole bunch of stuff. What I want to talk about right now is Theater Mechanicus. That's the mini game that allows you to play within this little dungeon and control towers to defeat hilly curlies and other enemies. I know I describe it in such an excited way, but it's seriously a fantastic mini game that really shows what Genshin Impact is capable of doing. You should be watching this footage right now of what this looks like, but it is frankly amazing. Now let me be clear, Theater Mechanicus is critical to the Lantern Rite event. It's not just about story missions. You need this minigame to unlock some of the rewards. So we're gonna go into that. We're gonna talk about why you need to be playing Theater Mechanicus right now and how it can benefit the rest of the Lantern Rite event. Welcome to BronzeDadPlays, where today we're talking about Theater Mechanicus, what you should be doing, how you should be doing it, and what's going to allow you to succeed. So for the Lantern Rite Festival, it's all about making these lanterns up here and redeeming them into rewards. If you've already started the Lantern Rite Festival, you've already done Zhao's main story quest, and now you're on to the festival proper, you probably noticed that you can make lanterns. Find another video about that. We're not going to talk about it. You may have heard that the Lantern Festival is going to give you a free character, and that's not entirely true. If you click on Stand By Me here, you can see 6 characters that are from Liyue that you can get for free-ish. You have to not only level the festival up to get the Glow of 1,000 Lanterns Fever level, but then you earn the opportunity to spend 1,000 Peace Talamins to get your free character. So it's not as free as you may thought. It will not cost you Primo Gems, does not cost you dollars, but it does cost Peace Talamins. That is why you must play Theater Mechanicus. If you click on Theater Mechanicus on the event page, that's where you're going to find where you get your Peace Talamins. Each and every one of these achievements come with a variety of Peace Talamins, usually at least 300 just for a single achievement, and the achievements aren't too hard. However, there's 3 stages to this, and the stages will unlock over time, as well as based on the fever level that you've achieved. You can see here I've got Theater Mechanicus Stage 2, and in 11 hours Stage 3 will unlock, but to get to 4 and 5, I've got to reach various fever levels. So time is a factor, but also how much you play this event. So given the fact that most of these achievements reward you with 300 Peace Talismans, you're really talking about getting 3 or 4 achievements completed within the next 23 days from the day this video is uploaded to get your free character. It's not going to be hard. Some of these are just basically playing at one time, playing to a certain difficulty level, playing enough to spend a bunch of the tokens. It's not crazy difficult, but it will require you playing the game, and some of these that reward quite well require you to beat the game on pretty high difficulties. I know I've mentioned Fever a few times, and I don't want to go entirely into the Lantern event here, but these Lantern Rite tales are exactly where you're going to raise your Fever level. As you complete quests, which unlock over time, you're going to raise your Fever level and get you a whole bunch of other rewards. So I'm not going to cover that here, but there you go. There's the quick and dirty. So back to Theater Mechanicus. If you're in Liyue Harbor, Theater Mechanicus is this little tower I can't click on right here. Theater Mechanicus Rougine. If you go to this NPC right here, she's going to allow you to teleport into a special map that's going to take you to the game. It's as simple as selecting a difficulty and then hitting start. However, there's a couple more things you should be aware of. Number 1, there's a variety of maps. You start with a couple stages and then more unlock the more you play. In addition, you start with a couple of towers and then you can unlock more. So for instance, Gust is not unlocked at the beginning. You have to unlock it using the sigils you get from winning the game. Various other pieces will be unlocked based on my festive fever level. So again, you've got to play the other parts of the events to unlock further levels in Theater Mechanicus, which then allows you to get more rewards to go to the other parts of the festival. This event is really well designed. I know it sounds a little crazy and complex, but seriously, mihoyo, good job. This armor here is also where you upgrade your towers. So in games like Dungeon Defenders, you might be used to putting a tower on the ground and upgrading as the game goes on. In the armory here is where you will pay to upgrade it, again with sigils that are unlocked from winning the game. If you're playing Theater Mechanicus right now, you're watching this video and you're like, man, this game is really hard. Have you looked in the armory? Because the armory is going to give you more attack, more range, and more attack speed for all of your towers. And then with various levels on each tower, you will unlock additional bonus effects. So for instance, I've leveled the water up to level 5 already, and that gives me additional damage, additional AoE, and it occasionally makes mist bubbles, which trap my enemies in place, which is so helpful against the larger enemies. And the damage upgrades are nothing to laugh at. As you can see on the Pyro Tower here, as I go from level 2 to 3, I almost double the damage it does. Now I'll show you in game that it also increases the cost, but it's worth it. You can also see on this tower that I've gotten it to level 5, and that's the max for this current stage. So again, I've got to get more fever and play more game in order to unlock more ability to play the game. So let's dive into what one of these matches looks like. So when you go to play Theater Mechanicus, you actually have all your party members available, but none of them can do damage directly. No physical damage or elemental damage will affect the enemies, but you do have your powers. So think about your elements very carefully. You're going to want your character's abilities to match up well with your best towers. However, there's one thing I would highly recommend here. I would recommend that as you're building your party, you seriously consider Anemo. If you aren't already aware, Elemental Resonance grants you specific buffs based on the people in your party. Now, in this game, you're going to be running around trying to build, defend, and move towers, meaning you're probably going to want good stamina and good move speed. So Impetuous Winds is what I would recommend. If you have 2 Anemo people in your party, you will decrease your stamina consumption, increase your move speed, and shorten your skill cooldowns. Those are all fantastic for this game. And there's a couple other things Anemo people can do that are extremely helpful on the map. For what it's worth in my party, I'm going with Venti, Sucrose, Zhengling, and Ganyu. Venti and Sucrose get me the Anemo bonus, but also Venti for the mobility, Zhengling for the flames, and Ganyu for the frost. Once you drop into the map, you're looking for the blue portals and the purple portals. The purple portals are where the enemies are going to come from, and the blue portals where they're going, your home base. You will have a certain number of enemies you cannot let into your home base. For the tutorial, it was 35, but then as you moved up the difficulties, that number drops. If you run out of numbers there and too many people escape, it's game over. You're going to look for circles on the ground that let you construct. When you construct, that means you're placing a tower in place that will defend that location. They all have a certain range of AoE that unfortunately you can't really visualize very well, but once you play a couple games, you'll get a feel for it. You'll be given a certain amount of resources to set up your initial towers, and then every time that your towers kill an enemy, you'll get more resources. If you use the specific recovery tower, it will actually reward you additional resources for every enemy that dies within its range. Now here is where the Anemo people come in handy. See, with the swirl effect, you're actually going to stagger your enemies. You can also do this just by hitting them a few times, but your goal is to keep your enemies within that circle while your towers kill them. That will reward you additional resources to unlock additional towers or remove towers. Building towers costs some amount of money, and deconstructing them doesn't get you all of that money back. So keeping a recovery tower out for a round or two allows you to recover missing resources, and then dismantling that tower allows you to put a more powerful tower later on in the later stages where damage is going to matter more than resources. So once the time is up or you hit P, the enemies are going to come. And they're going to come hard and fast. The first couple rounds you play, you're not really going to know what to do. You're going to have to feel this out, but here's what I recommend. Start with the water and ice towers. These will allow you to freeze your enemies in place, so that way you can slow them down. If they're slowed down, then you can hit them with damage towers. The one that works the best there is Electro. Now, Pyro towers have the most damage in the game, so that's another strategy you can go with as well. If you do Electric and Pyro, your goal is to damage them before they pass the towers. If you go with Water and Ice, your goal is to freeze them in place and hopefully damage them enough. Now, there are a lot of big enemies that frankly don't care about cryo. They just walk right past it, so it gets a little scary. There's a wide variety of strategies here, and really any can work well. You're going to have options to set up towers close to the enemies or close to your home base. I would recommend one tower initially back at your home base just to help clean up any stragglers, maybe something like an Electro or a Pyro. And I would recommend doing a very heavy front line. You want to damage them in an AoE as much as possible while they're still clumped up at the beginning of the map. AoE will be less effective the less enemies there are. So AoE is not as effective by the time they're running towards home base. AoE is extremely effective while they're coming out of their home base. Once you've either killed all the enemies or some have escaped and the round is over, you will now be able to choose an additional buff. The Adepti Arts will allow you to select a positive bonus that will affect you for the rest of the game. However, there are also some kinks thrown in there. So there are some that are very simple, such as additional attack speed, additional damage, additional range, and there are some that are a little more complicated. Fickle comes up fairly often, and what Fickle does is give you a very large positive bonus for a relatively strong negative bonus that will last one round. So for instance, one that's come up for me several times is having my attack speed increased 25% or my damage increased 150%. In exchange for a certain type of tower going offline, and it will not tell you the cost until you've already selected it. High risk, high reward. While you're early in the game, I would suggest avoiding Fickle completely, but once you've upgraded some towers, Fickle can be used relatively easily. You will also get some fearless challenges in there where if you accept an additional strong enemy coming in, you will get bonus rewards at the end of the round. Play will progress through several waves indicated up here, and once you've gotten through all of them, then you'll be rewarded sigils. As long as you don't let the total number of monsters escape, you will win the game. So even if it comes down to one last monster, you can still win. Now you get additional rewards based on how many rounds you survive, based on how many enemies don't escape, based on towers you use, based on upgrades you select. There's a variety of things in there, and then it has a multiplier based on the difficulty you select. So typically you want to play at the highest difficulty you can that will allow you to still complete the game. You may lose out on some tokens based on people escaping, but you will get even more tokens because of the multiplier that affects all the things you successfully did. A couple things to look out for: huge enemies. Most of the larger enemies in the game have some sort of defensive ability, whether that's a shield or they ignore cryo. There's something that they do that allows them to be an elite enemy. If a shield breaks on the elite hilly curlies, they will simply walk straight forward without stopping. So with the larger hill curlies, what you want to do is actually let them pass your towers and then stall them with the tower right behind them. This allows the tower to attack their non-shielded side and destroy them without destroying their shield. Another very good bonus to look out for is bonus damage on the recovery towers. There is an Adepti art that gives plus 200% damage if the enemies are standing within range of a recovery tower, meaning you're going to kill people more easily and get more rewards for killing them. It makes the recovery towers amazing if you can find that one, and you can't always find it. Next hot tip: don't be afraid to dismantle. You can put out a cheap tower initially just to try and slow down your enemy, things like the cryo towers, and then remove it later as you want to put more hot damaging things because you have more resources available. You can only ever build 14 towers unless you get an Adepti art that lets you build more. So it's recommended you build all of those. Even if they're recovery towers initially, because those have a lower cost, you can dismantle those and replace those with a damage tower later while recovering resources. As I mentioned earlier, all of the animal people are OP here, especially Jean. Jean is like SSS tier because she can pick up the enemies into a vortex and simply throw them off the map. It's amazing. I don't have her, but it's amazing. Then you've got people like Ganyu who can lay down frost everywhere that will actually trigger overloads and superconducts and all that good stuff. You want to be able to trigger these elemental reactions in order to do as much damage as possible. If you get the Abyss Order mages coming through, they cannot be slowed or stopped so long as they have their shields. And sometimes you're going to have shields come through that match your best element, meaning you're not going to do much to them. This is where diversity in your team becomes important. You can activate elemental reactions on those shields and bust them in order to allow your towers to then do the damage they need to do. So when it's all said and done, you will get sigils at the end of the game that you can then feed into all the other stuff we talked about earlier. This is a really, really cool game. There's a lot of guides out there on the internet already on some ideal tower setups, but we will get more as more stages unlock. Make sure you play the rest of the Lantern Fest in order to unlock additional fever and therefore unlock additional components to this game that you then use for rewards to get other stuff. It's going to be a cool event, guys. We have about 20-ish days left by the time this uploads. I hope you're having a great Lantern Rite. Thanks for watching, and until next time, see ya.